We're just about a mile from downtown Toronto, Ontario, Canada, on the shores of Lake Ontario at Exhibition Place, where the CART FedEx Championship Series is ready to run. Helio Castroneves is the pole sitter, ready to run for the green flag. It's a breakthrough year for veteran Roberto Moreno. He spent the last 15 years jumping from series to series. Moreno drove for Gallus Racing in '85 and '86. Then he raced Formula One off and on for 9 years. In the late '90s, Moreno drove in both CART and the IRL. This is the first full-time ride since '96, and he's making the most of it. At Cleveland, Roberto grabbed his first career pole and first career win. The 41-year-old possesses a commanding lead atop the standings and is guaranteed to leave the Canadian streets as the point leader. It's been a great couple of weeks for Roberto Moreno. All the crews are now calling him Bob. He even had to change his home phone number because he had so many congratulatory calls. But the qualifying this weekend, not nearly what he would have hoped. He qualified to start 16th. Roberto's closest pursuer in the championship is Michael Andretti, who has 5 wins at Toronto, and today looks for career win number 40. Dario Franchitti is the defending champion and still searching for his first victory in 2000.
Well, Dario Franchitti starts this day in 5th place. A late qualifying crash cost him an opportunity to move up further on the grid. He's 13th in the championship point standings. And today we start the second half of the championship chase. If Dario Franchitti is going to be a contender, he's got to score major points on the streets of Toronto today. Now, Michael Andretti, of course, is the undisputed king of the streets. He's second in championship points. He's had a good weekend. He starts right in front of Dario in the number 3 spot, and he's hoping that he can make his move to catch Moreno and not let Bob streak away in the championship point standings.
Rookie Kenny Brack is coming to life with 2 podiums in the last 5 races. Second-year man Cristiano D'Amata is showing no signs of a sophomore slump. In his last 2 races, 2 top 5s, including his first career podium.
And Cristiano has an awesome weekend going so far. It's his best ever qualifying position. He's put it on the front row with his fellow Brazilian, Helio Castroneves. He's also coming off a best career finish. That was 3rd at Cleveland. Another guy who also has a best career finish at Cleveland was, of course, Kenny Brack. Kenny Brack finished 2nd there. He's 7th on the grid today. And for Kenny Brack, he has done an awesome job considering it's his first time ever at this racetrack. He did that qualifying time in the slow group.
The biggest challenge here today will be the track itself. It's a natural street course, so it's rough. It's very bumpy. It's lined with concrete walls just inches away from the racing surface. But perhaps the biggest challenge of all is the fact that in the first turn, it narrows down to a mere 28 feet wide. And that's for drivers who are used to running out in the wide open spaces.
The championship fight at this point in the season is in full swing. There's tremendous pressure on the starts and the restarts going down into turn 1 and down into turn 3 to make your move. Historically, Toronto has taken its toll on drivers and equipment. Today will be no different.
Exhibition Place in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The CART FedEx Championship Series is ready to run. Today, it's the Molson Indy. And the engines commanded to life, the cars sitting side by side in the pit area, ready to acknowledge the rollout and begin the 3 laps running up to the green flag. So let's take a look at how they qualified here. On the front row, the winner on the last street course, Helio Castroneves, and Cristiano D'Amata with a great start on the outside of the front row. In row 2, it's Michael Andretti and the defending series champion Juan Montoya. Row 3 is Dario Franchitti, and Christian Fitipaldi is on the outside. There's Kenny Brack in row 4. Gilles de Perrin will start outside. Now, Toronto's not been kind to the track record holder. He's 3rd in the points, but he's never finished here in the top 15. Row 5, Adrian Fernandez and Mauricio Gugelmin. Adrian has slipped to 11th in the points, but he was a winner here in Toronto in '96. Oriol Servia and Paul Tracy make up the 6th row. In the 7th row, it's Jimmy Vasser and Max Pappas. Vasser currently sits 6th in the points, but he is winless in his last 29 races. In row 8, Mark Glendale, and there's Bob. Roberto Moreno outside of the 8th row. Patrick Carpentier and Brian Herta make up row 9. Carpentier is looking to improve on his best Toronto finish of 11th. His teammate Alex Tagliani starts inside row 10 with Michel Jourdain Jr. outside. For the first time in his Champ Car career, Tag will race in his native country of Canada. Shinji Nakano and Roberto Fontana make up the 11th row. The 12th row is Tarso Marquez and Takuya Kurosawa. And alone in row 13 is Luis Garcia Jr. So the field now rolling behind the pole sitter, Helio Castroneves. There was an emotional moment here for the presentation of the trophy to the pole sitter, because the trophy has been named after the late Greg Moore, who passed away during competition at Fontana last year. The award was made by Greg's father, Rick Moore. It's ironic that Helio Castroneves is in the car Greg would have driven. ESPN's coverage of the Molson Indy from Toronto, Canada is brought to you by FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series. By Firestone, America's tire since 1900. And by Honda, proud sponsor of the 2000 FedEx Championship Series. Welcome back. The race here at Exhibition Place has been extended since last year. It was 95 laps last year. They've upped it to 112, and we expect, with that fuel range, without question, at least 2 pit stops before the conclusion of the run.
Principal passing area here in Toronto is heading down into turn 1. The drivers break from 170 down to 70 miles an hour. It narrows from 60 feet to just under 30. The other primary passing area is heading down into turn 3, where the drivers reach their terminal velocity of 190 miles an hour and have to slow all the way down to 40. Sometimes you'll see passes attempted in turn 5 or after the quick turn 7 that they negotiate at 160 miles an hour flat in 5th gear heading into turn 8. But it usually ends in disappointment and heartache against the outside wall.
Moving closer and closer to the green flag as they begin the pace lap. We've got some onboard cameras for you. Mark Glendale, he's back there in 15th place. Of course, you're looking back from his car. Max Pappas with his brand new helmet, he starts 14th. That's a caricature of a pilot flying a little rocket ship that's really a beer can. And then, of course, Juan Montoya, he starts in 4th place. Last check-in with the pits before we go green. Gary Gerald.
Well, for Helio Castroneves, of course, starting from the pole, great emotion, great jubilation, and added championship point. But this has not been a trouble-free weekend. Friday, he blew a plenum off the top of his Honda power plant that destroyed part of the upper bodywork. Saturday morning, electronic gremlin, mechanical failure in one of the pieces. You wonder, is that in the back of the mind? Is that a concern as they get ready to turn him loose here in the streets of Exhibition Place? Jan?
And Gary, for Cristiano D'Amata, although it doesn't feel like it right now, we do have showers possibly in the forecast. So I asked him, what would you prefer today if it was wet or dry? He said, you know, in the old days when I didn't qualify well, I used to pray for rain. But today, I want to stay just like it is.
Well, as they work now on the pace lap here at Exhibition Place, we'll give you another look at the starting grid. About that plenum, the corner workers called in after it blew off and said, hey, there's a kitchen sink laying out in the middle of the track. It was pretty spectacular, but not, Parker Johnstone, the most spectacular. You really have that one.
Yeah, I think I've got the world's record. I blew a plenum coming out of turn 2 at Indy, and it ended up on the golf course, and I think I heard some 4s as it was coming back to earth.
All right, the field should come into rows of 2 right here. This is the turn that leads to the green flag on the pit straight. We watch for green. And here we go at Exhibition Place. Green flag. Castroneves grabs the inside line. D'Amata battles with Michael. Now this is Lakeshore Drive along straightaway. You're on board Montoya.
Now what you see is weaving by Michael Andretti is Michael being a little defensive, but trying to find the smoothest line between the manholes.
Whoa!
As they come down to turn 3.
Oh, 2 people in trouble. Castroneves loses it.
Mario Franchitti into the back of Montoya.
Franchitti gets right into the side of Montoya. Oh, no. 3rd corner of the race course.
And D'Amata's leading his first Champ Car race, but this is one of the problem areas coming down into the 3rd corner.
Rest of the field appears to have gotten through safely. They have gone to local yellow only, meaning the cars only have to slow at turn 3. And there is a substantial runoff area there, so they might be able to get the cars off the course, then back on. But Now the decision has been made to go to a full course caution, which of course means that the pace car will come out, the field will slow entirely, and they'll try to get these two unstuck from one another.
And remember, the last two races we've had first lap incidents going down to the Festival of Curves in Portland, and then also 2 weeks ago at Cleveland. Now watch Castroneves in too hot, down the inside, locks the rear wheels. Cristiano D'Amata comes across. Michael locks it up. Franchitti locks up the rear wheels and spears Montoya as he begins to turn in for turn number 3.
And Kenny Brack had a really close call. Here is Montoya's view.
Watch the smoke come off the front of Michael's tires. You can see Castroneves wide. Montoya turns in for the corner. Bang, hit by Franchitti. Fitipaldi gets through, and Brack just misses on the way through, followed by Adrian Fernandez and Oriol Servia.
And Montoya raises his hands almost like, what happened there?
Let's watch it again in real speed this time. Coming down into the corner, Castroneves, D'Amata misses. Bada bing, bada boom. We can see bodywork. The front wings of Franchitti's car. Cold tires, cold brakes, and a lot of testosterone working there.
And a full course caution as a result. The pace car is out, driven by Gail Truis. Stacy Kuhn is the onboard passenger, keeping the cars aligned, and they're still doing everything they can to try and get Montoya separated from Dario Franchitti. Franchitti's crew, all they can do at the moment at least, well, they're finally separated, is watch and hope that they can get both these cars around, and that once they are around, that both of them are repairable. Here's the start itself.
Now, I'm surprised Cristiano D'Amata didn't get a very good start. Montoya tries to slide himself in between with Mikey on the inside, but watch Cristiano come straight across. Montoya backs out of it to avoid contact. Michael around the inside, but not enough to get a run coming off at turn 2 and onto the back straightaway.
And of course, it was just one turn later that they all got together, but most of the field got through. Those two cars of Dario Franchitti and Juan Montoya are the only ones that are apparently in any real trouble over this. We'll be back with more. Our first Toyota Spotlight has to do with the difficulty that they are having getting through the first lap. This was the first turn at Portland. Last 3 races have not gone well, because not only was there this confrontation then 2 weeks ago at Cleveland. Here they came screaming for turn 1. Yep, that was expensive. And then, of course, today, going into turn 3. Montoya and Franchitti are the ones that pay the highest fine for that one. Gary Gerald?
And the day is done for Juan Montoya. The defending champion of the series is out of the car. He got it back to the pits. They changed the tires. They were trying to rev the engine and let him go. Hard officials came running to the front, said no, no, no. Went to the back. You could see damage at the back of the car. Now Juan up on the pit wall talking with Bill Pappas and the crew. Jan?
Dario Franchitti has come in. The crew has assessed the damage, and they have decided they cannot fix it. Maybe I can get in and get a quick word. Dario, what happened down there?
Sorry?
What happened down there?
I'm not sure. Somebody locked up ahead. There was Juan, Michael, and myself were all sort of together, and something happened. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm disappointed for myself and Juan. You know, we got tangled up.
All right, we're back to green. Sorry, you're out.
So the green flag being acknowledged by Cristiano D'Amata coming to the front of the field ahead of Helio Castroneves. And now they're on that long Lakeshore straight and coming toward the turn that was a problem for them earlier. And Oriol Servia, a bright yellow car, skated left and right as he tries to charge on Paul Tracy. Here D'Amata brings them through.
Everyone holding their breath coming up through turn 3. You can see Servia just tucked in behind, defending the line from Gilles de Ferran. Did so successfully. Looks like they've made it.
So Cristiano D'Amata is leading this field. Of course, he got by Castroneves when Castroneves locked him up in 3. Gary Gerald, what's Juan Montoya thinking at this point? He's got to be angry.
Well, I think he's just kind of wondering about the fates. Juan, tell us now, were you totally a victim? What were you trying to accomplish there?
Nothing, you know. I could have been second in the stars. I don't do anything silly. I brake pretty early. As soon as I brake, D'Amata cut across in front of me. Then I was braking in the hairpin, and suddenly, you know, that run in the back of myself, and it's a shame because the car, I thought we had a really strong car, and it was really good under braking, so I was really hoping to get a good result here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the way we saw it. Cristiano D'Amato now leads, followed by Castroneves, then Michael Andretti and Christian Fitipaldi, Michael's teammate, in fourth. Kenny Brack is up there in fifth place right now, followed by Adrian Fernandez. I want to go back and look at this start. You heard the description by Montoya. I want you to watch what Cristiano did.
Now watch what happens as they come out of turn 11. Cristiano starts to drop back. Castroneves gets a great start. And I tell you, Paul, huge kudos to Montoya, because watch what happens here. He's able to slot in up underneath Cristiano D'Amato with Michael Andretti right at this point, but he does a very mature thing. He backs out under braking coming into the first corner because D'Amato takes his line here, and if Montoya in that position hadn't backed out, there would have been a big wreck. Now at this point, D'Amato's got a better run than Michael coming off the corner. We've always talked about how aggressive and how quick Montoya is, but that shows you he's also patient when he needs to be, looking at the bigger picture and trying to get to the front by the finish.
Back on the racetrack, Oriol Servia is working on Paul Tracy. Tracy, this is his hometown track. He grew up in the suburbs of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and he started 12th, but Tracy on the first couple of laps moved quickly and now runs in 7th place. Behind him, of course, Oriol Servia is the teammate to our current leader, Cristiano D'Amato. Toyota power on both of those cars. And it's kind of ironic, I think, that Toyota moved over and joined the Target Chip Ganassi team. And you would think with all of their research and development capabilities that they obviously have, that here you find the PPI entry of Cristiano D'Amato at the front of this field.
Cristiano D'Amato and his rookie teammate Oriol Servia all year long have just gotten stronger and stronger. This Calwell's operation really coming to the forefront, especially during the last few races. They're going to experience something they've never had to deal with before, which is, if this continues, when we come to the first pit stop, is having the ultimate pressure placed on them in the pits, having to pit their car as the lead car.
Helio Castroneves, he won at Detroit, his only victory, and that, of course, a street course. So he fares well on these circuits. And he's closed just a bit on Cristiano D'Amato. Of course, he has the Newman Haas team right behind him, jumping all over the back and rear wing of his car. There they are. There you see Christian and Michael.
And once clear of the opening laps, what the drivers are being told and what they're thinking about now that they've settled into a rhythm is trying to conserve fuel and also trying to take care, especially of the rear tires. It's very easy to lock brakes here. They're finding that it's difficult to get the cars to ride over the bumps properly, but you've got so many low-speed corners where it's very easy to snap the rear tires loose and spin them that it's very easy to burn up those rear tires. So the drivers are trying to be careful with the throttle, not lean on the back tires through some of the medium-speed corners to try to conserve them, to get them to go 37, 38, 39 laps until that first pit stop.
Kenny Brack, who is looking very strong this weekend in the Shell car, currently runs in 5th place, but Adrian Fernandez is closing in. Gary Gerald, what about the fuel strategy today?
Already monitored one conversation, Paul Tracy being told that he's falling behind on the fuel game right now, and that comes very, very early, but it just bears out what Parker was saying. They want so much to try to make this a two-stop race, not be forced to a third, but to make it a two, you're definitely going to have to conserve somewhere along the line or get a lot of yellow.
Parker, there's so much talk about it, fuel competition and how they have to conserve fuel. Here are drivers that are driving with such precision that turn after turn, they're never off by more than an inch or so, as long as they're running the lap alone, not having to deal with traffic or other conditions. And yet then we theoretically slow them down. Well, it doesn't slow them down all that much, and it certainly doesn't prevent them from racing.
Well, no, it doesn't. And as we've said before, if they had an unlimited amount of fuel in the pits, it wouldn't make any difference. They want to try to pit under a yellow flag to maintain track position, or in this case, extend mileage as long as possible so that if it stays green, it's only a two-stop race, so they aren't sacrificing having to come in for that third stop and losing position on the track. So really, it's not a matter of how much fuel they have in the pits or how much fuel they have in the car. It's how you plan that strategy to make it as few stops as possible, or if you do stop, try to catch a yellow flag.
Of course, everyone, the same 35-gallon fuel tank full of methanol fuel. Jan Bikas.
Well, the other thing we all have, Paul, is they have the ability on board to change the fuel mixture. And some of the drivers feel that maybe that's something that should go away, so that therefore the team would have to decide its strategy before the race ever started. You could still run lean and try and make a two-stop race. The driver just would not have the ability to change it. And they feel that that might take some of the emphasis off some of these fuel economy races. One of the ideas that is being discussed up and down pit road.
Well, Jan, there's another interesting idea as we continue to watch the leaders of the race. There comes Helio Castroneves, who is second place with Michael and Christian right behind him. D'Amata has pulled out, well, just a little over a second in front of these. But Jan Bikas, as we were talking, there's even a suggestion that we put all the fuel in the pit tank and let the crews allocate the way they want to. Another suggestion to maybe not let the cars stop during a yellow flag. Is there somewhere that you favor?
Yeah, I like both those two. I think it's a great idea. Why not give them as much fuel as they want? They can choose how much they start the race. Therefore, if you ever have a red flag situation, you don't have to run up and down pit road and top off the cars. And then you would see different strategies, especially if you could not pit under caution. Then not everybody would come in on the same lap, and we could cover a whole lot more pit stops down here.
Of course, the situation right now is that whatever you put in the car for the start still subtracts 35 gallons off your allotment, regardless of what you actually put in the car. So it takes a little bit of the fun away from it. Takuya Kurosawa comes into the pits. No idea what the problem is, but it appears to be quite serious. Cristiano D'Amata, he is still the leader of the run here. He picked it up in turn 3 during that incident. There's Cal Wells on the right. He is the owner of the team, and he seemed a little nervous this morning as we shook his hand just before the start of the race and wished him well. He said, oh, boy, I hope we do good today. There's the lineup. They're doing good so far. So at exhibition place, we are underway in the kart FedEx Championship Series. Welcome back to Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I'm Paul Page with Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerald, Jan Bikas in the pits as you look down from the Honda Helicam. A bit of a cloud layer moving over the top of the track now. No moisture reported yet, but they were saying that just a few miles north. Look at Tracy. Has he got a sign stuck in there? That, you know, you can laugh about the way it looks, but if that gets into the cooler, he's got a very serious problem.
It's probably already disrupting the airflow into the radiator on the right side. And if it does come off and get into the radiator, I'll have to pick, because that'll just soar the temperatures.
Oriol Servia is right there working Tracy as hard as he can. There was report of rain about 15 miles north of the track. Direction of the weather here, though, would not necessarily push that down here. There you see the downtown. Cloud layer, a couple of skyscrapers sticking their noses up into the cloud layer. Oh, Tracy, that could become... Right now, it's not where it's really blocking anything.
Keep your finger on the overtake, bud. Keep your finger on the overtake. Don't use it unless you have to.
The thing I'm trying to see here, Paul, is it might look like it's covering the right front brake scoop, and that could make for a significant problem since you come from so many high-speed to low-speed corners here at Toronto. You can hear Barry Green telling Paul to be conservative with the fuel. We've heard that the whole time since the beginning of the race to Paul Tracy. He's not making enough fuel mileage to make it 2. We just monitored a conversation between Ian Watt, Cristiano D'Amata's engineer, conversely, who said, you've got great fuel mileage, go. You're safe from behind and just stand on it.
Interesting comparison then, Honda v. Toyota.
Exactly. Remember, this engine manufacturers battle is the most intense it's been in years and years. Toyota leading now, Honda in second place with Castroneves. Typically, the Hondas have had great drivability, great fuel mileage on the street circuits, and now we're seeing a Toyota at the front getting good mileage, a Honda farther back, Tracy now in 7th place, having to conserve fuel. Right now, the 2 quickest cars on the track, this man, Cristiano D'Amata, in 1st, and Kenny Brack back in 5th place.
And since we've come back, really only one change since we last left you. And that was back at 13th. Bob, Roberto Moreno is on the move. He got around Mark Glendale for 13th place. Let's go to Jan Bikas.
Well, Parker, you're talking about the different engines running at the front right now. We also have a pretty nice combination of chassis, too. You talked about the Toyota for Cristiano D'Amata. That's a Reynard, followed by another Reynard Honda. Then we got a couple of Lolas, and then a Ford Reynard, followed by actually 2 Ford Reynards and another Honda Reynard. So you can't ask for better parity here in the series. All kinds of different combinations running well today.
Luis Garcia off. That's the turn 3 runoff. And he's going to try to get him to push him back on. Fortunately, in that area of the course, they can do it quite safely and fairly quickly. There's still that separation. You've got D'Amata running alone, and then the next three, Castroneves, Andretti, Christian Fitipaldi, and a little bit of a distance back to Kenny Brack, and then quite a distance back to Adrian Fernandez.
And you can see coming down that long straightaway where they're traveling nearly 300 feet a second, the length of a football field, coming down into turn 3, how the drivers are favoring the right side of the track, which isn't the traditional racing line, then moving back to the left. They're not doing that to block or to be defensive, but simply because of the numerous manhole covers that line the streets here. They have to find the smoothest way around the track so they can run these cars as low as possible to the ground to maintain the maximum aerodynamic efficiency of these cars.
Well, Luis Garcia Jr. was able to get back into the action quite quickly. Kenny Brack last time around was just under 4 seconds behind the leader. We're going to keep a watch on him and see. He maintained about the same interval.
And we can see Carpentier there just going down into turn 1, getting around Glendale.
Go on board Mark Blundell for you.
Coming down into turn 1, watch for the concrete patches off the asphalt in most of these corners.
Now, we mentioned Roberto Moreno getting around Blundell. In the interim, he also got around both of the players' cars, Tagliani and Carpentier, and so now Moreno, there he is on the move, beginning to work on Max Pappas. That's the best battle on the track. Jan Beekes.
Quick update on Paul Tracy. We saw that debris, and according to Barry Green, they do not believe that has got into the radiator or cooling area. I think it's gone to the side. The temperatures are fine. Their only concern right now, they want to get better fuel economy.
Mauricio Gugelmin currently runs 10th. Our coverage here today from our broadcast partner, Global Television. They're the host broadcaster here. CBC has been in the past. Today it is Global that is bringing you the race coverage itself. On with Pappas. Remember Moreno right behind him. Critical passing area coming. Uphill right here. Doesn't look it, but it's pretty steep. And Mark Blundell just pulled off the left edge of the race course. Doesn't get you on a street circuit off course, and he wants to get going. I wonder what his problem was. Other than he doesn't want to sit right there. You see Jan Beekes down there. He's checking that information out right on top of it. Corner caution only, yellow flag only at that section of the racetrack. Jan Beekes.
Oh, you saw me getting the information.
Yeah, we did.
And they said the engine just cut. That's the only information they have right now. The engine just conked out on him.
Well, it's driving Mark Blundell nuts. He wants them to come out and get him going. I'm sure he feels pretty vulnerable sitting out there.
Yeah, and a few things, Paul, as we watch that last cut of Mark, we could see a big piece of plastic there on the exit of 2, which I think is from the front of Tracy's car. Blundell is in a very precarious section of the course. The drivers are blind as they come onto that back straightaway, and he's sitting right on the exit. Also, Cristiano D'Amata just behind Luis Garcia Jr. He wants to make quick work of Luis Garcia Jr., so he's got a bit of buffet between himself and the rest of the field.
So now, finally, the kart safety team is there, going to do what they can to help Mark Blundell clear the race course. D'Amata still the leader. Helio Castroneves in second. And the interval that we were watching Kenny Brack back from the leader has actually expanded almost 5 seconds. But the interval from Brack to Christian Fitipaldi just ahead of him is slowly closing down. It's Toyota, Honda, and then 4 Fords lined up as we are running an exhibition place in Toronto. You don't want to forget coverage of Sunday Night Baseball as Oakland heads to take on Colorado and the Chicago Cubs in Kansas City tonight on ESPN. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Part of the Go Network, go.com. Paul Page, Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerald, Jan Beekes. We're at Exhibition Place in Toronto, Canada. Currently, it is Cristiano D'Amata that is still the leader of the race. He picked up the lead on the first lap, third turn, started second. He got that lead when Leo Castroneves faltered going into turn 3, locked the brakes up. There's only been one change since we have been away from you. It's been a pretty interesting fight. Oriol Servia working on Paul Tracy.
And what a great pass. Oriol, remembers, probably running a little bit richer than Paul. And watch this as they come around turn 3. Oriol now trying to regain his composure. Paul just gets into the back of Oriol a little bit as they come off of that corner. Great pass.
And as you pointed out, that piece of banner or whatever it was that was attached to the right front of Paul Tracy's car has apparently dislodged itself all by itself. We saw it laying out on the course just ahead of Mark Blundell's car while they were trying to get it restarted.
And speaking of Blundell, we have a report that the safety crew was unable to get his car restarted, and he's been pushed back behind the wall permanently now.
Max Pappas, Roberto Moreno is right there behind him. And just behind Roberto, Carpentier and Tagliani, the two teammates. There's the leader of the race. Now look up track just ahead of him. It's Luis Garcia Jr. Remember, he had that off-course excursion, came back on. Well, he came back on out in front of the leader. And there Cal Wells is down talking to Luis's team, Al Arciero over on the right, and saying, hey, get your driver over and out of my way. I'm the leader of the race. Please, please, please help me.
And these discussions occur a lot more frequently than I think the average fan knows about. That's Barry Brook, the team manager in the back. Cal saying, hey, look, and if you're Luis Garcia Jr. as a driver, as team owners, you're going, well, get closer, and then we'll move over, but we're just not going to stop on the racetrack. You can see there, he's 5 or 6 car lengths in front of him at this point.
Gary Gerald, did that ever turn into friendship?
Cal Wells just came back somewhat out of breath. I said, did you have any luck down there? And he said, no, and he just waved it off in disgust. So apparently he had no success. On the radio, they're telling Cristiano, no pressure from behind. And we're checking here on a further information. They just say they won't let you by. So they're urging Cristiano to be patient.
Patient and careful. And what makes it even more fun is remember that Al Arciero and Cal Wells were partners until a year ago. And so now they're far from being partners, and they're having some pretty animated discussions.
Yes, and unfortunately, Paul, for Cal Wells, he did get in there to plead his case, but then he was escorted out of their pit. They decided they needed to focus on race strategy, so he did not get to finish that point that he wanted to race.
So the pit side coverage continues. It may be better than what we have at the front right now, though. It's still a pretty good battle potential between Castroneves, Michael Andretti, and Fitipaldi, second, third, and fourth.
And I've been watching the gap between D'Amata and Castroneves. Well, D'Amata has been shadowing Garcia Jr. It actually increased that lap from 1.7 to 1.9 seconds. So really the mature thing to do here is you've got about 10 more laps till the first round of pit stops. As long as Luis is driving as well as he is, he's matching lap for lap what Cristiano's doing. You don't want to push too hard. You don't want to make a mistake this early in the race. You just play it safe. You get to that first round of pit stops, beat him out of the pits, and off you go.
See that yellow and white number 8 car of Kenny Brack. He has, in fact, been just nibbling away and inching his way forward on Christian Fitipaldi. Currently occupies 5th. And here at the front, once again, there's Luis Garcia Jr., the 25 car, and right behind him, the leader, Cristiano D'Amata. Now, is he going to let him by? Are they going to have to fight for it? Heading down for the Princess Gate, Cristiano D'Amata gave him a big wave there. Level of competition is so close. I mean, you really, whoa, Cristiano, come on, buddy.
Well, the thing is, you can't get so distracted and so furious about the car in front of you that you make a mistake, as we just saw there coming off of turn 2. And it's funny that drivers wave and shake their fists because you can barely see anything out of the back of these cars, and certainly you're so busy here in these confines of this concrete tunnel that certainly you're not going to see anybody shaking their fist at you. He's just really got to focus at this point. Cristiano's got to focus at doing the best lap he can, concentrating on getting good exits coming off the last corner and off of turn 2 to try to draft up behind, use the overtake button, and outbrake Luis Garcia Jr.
And finally, he gets past him. Now, can the rest of the group get through?
Paul, I think race control was going to give him the warning flag for blocking next time by. Maybe they radioed that communication to Garcia.
There goes a black flag warning.
Yeah, we saw the furled flag there, but really, Paul, I never saw a case where he was actually blocking. It's just, you get close, you're leading the race. It's the first time, keep in mind, Cristiano's led a Champ Car race. He wants that guy out of the way and to be used as a buffer between him and the rest of the cars. Now he hopes that the same fate befalls Castroneves and the rest of the guys
Michael
behind.
trying to make his move on Helio Castroneves, and Christian Fitipaldi almost gets inside Michael. Michael now runs around the outside of Castroneves. Michael challenges Castroneves. He doesn't have him now. He took a pretty good shot at it, though. It was almost costly to him because his teammate Christian almost jumped into that position.
He had Helio looking there, Paul. He went down the inside. Castroneves missed his turn in for the third turn. Got a little wide on the exit, allowed Mike to get up side by side, but Castroneves still held the advantage going up to turn 5.
Now, the Indy Light Series talks about being the development series for the kart champ cars. We got Cristiano D'Amata, former Lights champion. Second place, Helio Castroneves is sitting there. 2 of the tops out of the Light Series. In fact, 5 of the top 8 drivers are out of that Indy Light Series.
And keeping tabs of fastest laps now of the top 10, Oriol Servia has turned 4 of the top 10 quickest laps, followed by Brack, Andretti, Tagliani, and Fitipaldi.
The defending Indy Lights champion. Toyota, Honda, then 4 Fords. Nothing's really changed up there at the front. Cristiano just dodged a major bullet when he finally got around Luis Garcia Jr. Yeah, you like your racing coverage? Well, we've got the Molson Indy here, the Busch Series at Nazareth, NHRAs at Mile High for the Mile High National. We'll wrap all that up on RPM tonight. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. Well, we should be fairly close to the first round of stops here, and a lot of the psychological game is being played. Alex Tagliani just got around his teammate, Patrick Carpentier, and there's still a pretty good battle running about 12th through 15th. Carpentier dropped to 15th with that pass.
You know, the teams have had problems with car setup all weekend long, but to show you how the teams are psychological coaches for these drivers, we just monitored a conversation where the team told the driver, look, drive nice and gently. Everybody's going loose. You're the fastest driver on the track. And I turned and looked at the top 15 quickest times. This driver's not amongst them. Just goes to show you the head games that are played during the course of the race.
So you can check out kart.com and see what it says. It'll remain nameless as to who, in fact, that driver may be. We don't want to do that. Michael Andretti really wants to grab that spot away from Helio Castroneves. And Kenny Brack. Whoa, these guys were battling one another. Tarso Marquez, the Panasonic number 34, and Norberto Fontana, they got together. They had been in a very good fight for 19th place.
And if they can't get this clear, this is just what everybody wants.
That'll pull you back.
They'll bring out a yellow, obviously locally, but we might get a full course here, and you'll see everyone dive into the pits. We're watching the starter from our position.
And Parker, if that's the case, it'll be earlier than these teams wanted for their first stop in an effort to make it a 2-stop race.
Absolutely, Gary.
As you get going, you want to pit when you come get going.
They've got to go 37 on one stop and 38 on the next stop.
And Kenny Brack suddenly slowing down here and coming on to pit road. Still no full course.
And as Gary said, this is early.
Almost makes you wonder why. I mean, assume that he's out.
Go. Clear.
Oh, and Roberto Moreno takes a spin.
And Paul.
Oh, good. Full course caution. You see the double flags out there. That's the indication. The pace car is coming out, and it's full course caution. Now we're going to see probably a good portion of the field come in. Alex Tagliani just got back around Carpentier.
And I may know what caused Bob's problem there, Paul, because past our position, I saw Tagliani make a very aggressive move towards the inside down turn 1, but I didn't. There it is. I saw that when I was I know I'm not supposed to look out the window, but I couldn't help myself. And as they disappeared from our viewpoint, Tag got into the back of Moreno, and then you could see his teammate, Carpentier, trying to go inside Tag.
And there's the other situation. Let's go down to Gary.
Cristiano D'Amata comes in. Castroneves flies by. Fernandez, pitted further up the road, flies by. Now it's the pit crew's responsibility to try to beat their opposition. Here's D'Amata rolling. Just over 12 seconds. Let's go to Jan.
And we had a great battle down here between the Newman Hoff.
Oh, contact, Jan. We've got a problem here. It's Fitipaldi. Got into the back end of DeFerrin coming in, but he survived. He gets back out. DeFerrin hits his box okay.
And there is Fitipaldi with no nose on the race car. It went sliding across the pits.
And Paul, the nose ends up in the pit of Cristiano de Mata. It's right here. The officials have just brought it over the wall. You can see that there's slight damage where it was torn off at the impact where it's normally bolted on. And it's one of the extended noses, giving them the longer wheelbase, shifting the center of gravity on the Numanos cars this week. But it's gone, and Christian's got a big problem.
At the head of the pits, right at the pit exit across from Moreno's pit, there is Brian Herta, who just rolled to a stop right across from Roberto's pit, and then fire at the back of the car. So they're going to try and push him off the course. Herta is going to stay in the cockpit, though.
Oh, it's time to get out, I think, Paul. That smoke is getting bigger and bigger. We had reports that he had no clutch. Here's a replay of the incident. Christian Fitipaldi getting into the back of de Ferran.
Where de Ferran was at issue on the last street circuit with the in and out with Paul Tracy. Jan?
Well, I can tell you how it all started as Christian Fitipaldi is on his way here to get a new nose. I was just in the process of saying that we had an awesome pit stop, and now they're waving it off. They see the front, and they realize, as you can hear on the radio, we're done. There is no room to put on this new nose because it sheared it off the front. And what had happened is there was a 12.2-second pit stop between the two. They were drag racing down Michael and Christian, and then, of course, de Ferran had to slow for his pit.
So very costly for Christian. Parker, here it is one more time.
Watch here. On the way in, Michael's trapped on the inside. De Ferran has to slow down more than Christian had anticipated, trying to weave in to get to his box. And that's his day. And as Jan said, if you shear off the nose and it leaves the fasteners and part of the bulkhead from the wing attached, they can't put a new one on.
He was doing so well, too, steadily running forth. There's Brian Herta. They're still playing around with the car, and Brian picks up his helmet. I guess he decides that it's not going to be fixed. He's going to head for the paddock. We'll be back. Welcome back to Exhibition Place, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I'm Paul Page with Parker Johnstone. Jan Beekes and Gary Gerald are covering pit side, and we're going to come back to the green flag. There is Cristiano de Mata. He acknowledges the green as we come off the full course caution. But now Michael Andretti and Helio Castroneves in that order follow him in. Adrian Fernandez sits just back, and Oriol Servia's up there in the front beginning to challenge Fernandez.
And we saw Tracy go inside Brack on that restart down into turn one. Both very loose coming off the second corner.
Looks like Paul Tracy, as we look at the pit in and out. Castroneves, that was very costly. Looks like Paul Tracy's get a glimpse of the nose, has certainly visited someone with a nudge.
Well, and I think that was that earlier incident that we saw with Oriol Servia coming off the third corner up the hill. We could see Servia's car go back. We didn't have an overhead shot, but I think that's when that contact occurred.
That's just a little friendly, how are you, I'm here.
I've had a few of those from Paul in the past.
Cristiano de Mata has completed 39 of the 112 laps scheduled here, now completes the 40th. Cars out include, of course, Christian Fitipaldi, you just saw that, and Brian Herta. They both went out of the race. And when Christian was able to make it out of the car and back to the pits a few minutes ago, Jan Beekes caught up with him.
The pit road.
Happened, Michael and Gilles were side by side, and they really didn't decide who was going to back off, and suddenly Gilles just stood on the brakes like huge, big time, and he pulled to the right, and I was very close to him and hit him and lost the front nose.
Did you know that his pit was at pit out?
Well, I knew that his pit was further down, but I honestly wasn't expecting him to stand on the brakes the way he did, like, or start fading away a little bit earlier, but not. You're going on the limiter, like on the speed limiter, and then hit the brakes, and there's someone running like a couple of inches behind you. It's tough. This year has been very hard for me, but I have to continue.
Tough break for Christian Fitipaldi.
That's a contact from the point of view of Christian Fitipaldi. It pretty well was backed up by the video there. Helio Castroneves with Fernandez and Oriol Servia lined up. The front, de Mata, then Andretti. Then the space back to Castroneves. Jan?
In regards to Michael Andretti, I asked if they had made any changes on the car. They said the only change we made was a slight change of tire pressure at the rear. and his car had been loose, like a lot of guys, when the rear tires start to get worn off. So I make an assumption that would be they took some out.
So with D'Amata at the front of the field, picking up his lead on the third corner of the very first lap and leading his first kart FedEx race ever, is showing the way and doing a great job. When you look in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you see an arrow pointing either up or down. Well, that tells you if there has been a pass on the last lap. Michel Jourdain Jr. out of the car. His day is now being reported as ended. He was scored in 19th at the time he came out of the car. Brian Herta is also out of the car and out of the race. Gary Gerald?
Yeah, Paul, that round of pit stops produced all kinds of drama, and you ended up being a victim of a different type. What happened, Brian?
Yeah, it was one of those freak things. Looks like the exhaust broke on the car. Caught the clutch on fire and all the body work, and burned up some pieces we need to go racing, so it ended our day.
As a substitute for Tony Kanaan. Now, what's your status for this next week? Because I know Tony is targeting Michigan as a possible comeback.
I'm going golfing and going on vacation with my family next week, and we'll see what happens. I mean, as I've said all along, my goal is to get back in a full-time deal for next year. I'm still talking to Jerry Forsyth, and hopefully that's going to work out. We'll see. I mean, all I want to do is be out there racing full-time next year, and we'll see. I hope that'll happen.
We've enjoyed having you. Hope you get more chances.
Thanks. It's been fun.
Well, the best indication is that Jerry Forsyth intends to field 3 cars next year and put Brian Herta in the cockpit of that third car, as he, in fact, had intended this year, but got into a political tussle over representation within the franchise board that helps decide some of the rules. Montoya, too, has joined the spectator ranks. He joined him on the very first lap. Been a pretty good tussle going on. Castro Neves, Fernandez, Servia tries to get to the inside. Gets his nose down in there. Servia battles with Fernandez. And Servia's got him on the exit of the corner, but he's got a left-hand turn. Can he hold on there? Wow, Servia slides it, and he catches the barrier. Oh, what a great try that ends up against the tires. Oriol Servia.
And see if you can put it in reverse. See if you can get out of that mess.
Because there's probably little or no damage to that car because he hit absolutely parallel to the tires at a fairly low speed. But coming down into, I don't know if going forward's such a good idea.
Now back it up. Now back it up. Now back it up. I think you can back it up now.
Oh, I think he may have killed it because it looked like the tires came to a very quick snap stop there. We're revisiting now, coming into turn 5. You can see he was on the outside, too much speed, got a little bit too much rear brake on, and the car just pivoted. So coming down into the third corner, he forces the issue. Adrian says, well, okay, but I'm not giving up. We're going to have a run through 4 up to 5. If I've got the inside, I've got it. What you've got to keep in mind here is that it's a big crown in the road. There's a good banking on the inside, but if you get up even a car width off like Oriol did, it rolls way off camber to the outside. And I think as he turned in, the back end crossed the top of the crown, the car oversteered right into the tires.
And it looks like a little behind that Kenny Brack may have made a pretty good move on Tracy as well. So Cristiano D'Amata is still the leader here today. 44 laps are now complete as we go away for a short break. We want to show you what the helmet cam looks like. Mauricio Gruzerman's mechanic, Dave Ruskowski, as he changes the tire and puts Mo back into the fight. Well, welcome back to Exhibition Place in Toronto. There's Oriol Servia. He finally got off of that wall and got moving, but Parker mentioned at starting how rough this track can be on both driver and machine. And Gary Gerald, we've got another surprise in the pit.
Yeah, suddenly the 3-car of the Penske team and Helio Castroneves, who started from the pole, came flying into the pits. They ripped off the bodywork. We can see that there's some peeled paint off the right side pod. And I don't know if something overheated or broke, but Castroneves has just now climbed out and comes toward the scoring stand. And the man who was so elated 24 hours ago to get the precious championship point that would enable him to pace the race has now sidelined for the rest of the afternoon.
Gary Gerald, while you're there, and perhaps you will get a word with Helio shortly, but while you're in the Penske pit, with that contact between Christian Fitipaldi and Gilles de Ferran, I assume that everything's fine with de Ferran?
To the best of our knowledge, Paul, it is. Elio acknowledging the fans across the way with a wave, and they were cheering for him. Everybody loves this popular young Brazilian, and we'll see if we can't get him to make a move toward us here, and maybe we can grab a quick word. I think he wants to talk with Tim Cindric, however, the president of the Penske Racing Team, first. Well, hang on, Paul.
Yeah, that deployment guarantee is better. You saw Oriol Servia. They're working on the nose of his car. It looked like they were going for a swap of the nose. He came in after his contact with the wall over about the 5th turn.
And while we were away, Alex Tagliani had gotten around Jimmy Vasser we had seen earlier. Well, Gary was talking to Christian Fitipaldi from the onboard of Max Pappas. The Tagliani had gotten by Pappas. Now, keep in mind, Tagliani had started 19th. Currently runs in 7th position, having a great run towards the front. Currently one of the consistently quick drivers on the track.
Servia comes off the pits in 16th place, 3 laps behind the leader, his teammate Cristiano D'Amata. John?
They have been able to change the nose for Servia, but an update, first of all, on Gugelmin. We saw him slowing. They say it is an electrical type problem. So, again, another mystery problem. We saw one for Glendale, now one for Gugelmin.
There's kind of the official retirement of the car of Helio Castroneves. Paul Tracy, 4th place. There he is. Brack just behind him, then de Ferran. So Tracy has moved his way up 8 places from 12th as we show you on the move behind that. Look at the moves by Tagliani. This Canadian crowd is certainly inspiring that young Canadian. What about Helio Castroneves? Is he ready now, Gary?
Yeah, he is here. Did something break in the exhaust system?
Yes, I don't know what. Start body, smell, and getting very hot as well. So it's a shame. I was having a little problem on the braking point, especially with the rear. So I have to control a lot, and it was fun because the battle was pretty good, holding the 2nd place. And also the start, I just went too fast on the braking point. The car slid, and thank God I was able to save. So, well, it wasn't a very good race. I was having a lot of fun. But hey, we done a good job. I think the team did a fantastic job. Just race happened.
See you on the Super Speedway next weekend.
Exactly.
There's Kenny Brack still in pursuit now of Paul Tracy and Gilles de Ferran. So we watch Paul Tracy with that marvelous move up toward the front. A little further back, Pappas, Carpentier, and Bob, Roberto Moreno. Coverage again by Global TV here. We got cameras for Gary and Jan, but that's pretty much it. And that's the way it works with the host broadcasters. Look there at Paul Tracy's helmet. You get a glimpse of it from time to time. That is a helmet that replicates that of Greg Moore. And, of course, everyone thinking very much of Greg Moore being here for the first time this year in Canada. Greg from British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver is where he actually comes from. He has a foundation. They have a foundation for him now, and that helmet sold at auction for $45,000, the money going to that foundation. And Paul Tracy wearing it in tribute to his lost friend in the race here today. Mark Glendale, he had his problems earlier and finally is out of the car. Jan Vegas?
So much so he has his street clothes on already. Mark, what put you out?
Actually, I don't know. All I know is I went into turn 1 and the engine just completely died. And it wouldn't restart. The guys tried to bump me and get me going again, but it just wouldn't fire up, so it's the end of my day.
It appears as though your teammate may have some similar problems, electrical in nature. Have you had anything earlier in the weekend that might point the direction?
Well, we had a problem on Friday, which was a little bit connected with the fuel we bought, but maybe there's another problem which we've had an oversight with, but it's just a huge disappointment.
All right, well, sorry you have to watch it, but enjoy the rest of the race.
Thank you.
Adrian Fernandez, 3rd place, 2.5 seconds behind the leader, Cristiano D'Amata. You can see that interval right there.
And at the front, Paul, I've been watching that battle between D'Amata and Andretti. It's ranged between 0.7 to 0.9 of a second. It seemed to have stabilized, both the drivers being very consistent in lap times. Cristiano, only one of a few drivers that have been consistently in the 60.8, 60.9 second range.
You got to think about this combination at the front of the field, though. Cristiano D'Amata, he's never won. Right behind him, Michael Andretti. Won 5 times here. It's a classic new kid versus the veteran lineup at the front of the field in the FedEx Championship Series. Our Toyota Spotlight focuses itself on the budding friendship developing between Gilles de Ferran and Christian Fitipaldi. That was at Detroit. And then this today.
Gary Gerald reported that de Ferran had called in and said he felt like target practice. But I've got to tell you, from Christian Fitipaldi's standpoint, I know people at home are saying, well, why didn't he just lift? When you're on the pit speed limiter, you're at full throttle with the thing chugging along at 50 miles an hour. Keep in mind, in first gear, these cars go 50 miles an hour with just a small amount of throttle. Christian had very little time to react to be able to get his foot off the throttle on the brake and try to avoid that.
The driver of that car in front, Cristiano D'Amata, is a tiny guy. 123, 124 pounds. He's so excited he lost 5 pounds over the winter. You know, for a normal person my size, that's not much. But for him, that's a major percentage. Plays the guitar, plays it very well, in fact. But at the moment, he better start focusing on those rear-view mirrors because he has a very hungry Michael Andretti right there. The race recap after the 55 laps. Cristiano had been the guy the whole way. Had Helio Castroneves, the leader from the pole, but by turn 3, it was all Helio Castroneves out of the race. Some pretty significant names there and some impact on the point standing. We were looking earlier when we saw that that whole nose come off of Christian's car and broke off, and that was unrepairable. Gary, you have some more on that?
Well, actually, I've got a question for you and Parker. I'm just wondering, we mentioned the Newman Haas is running that extended nose. It's about 4 inches longer than the other noses, and it affects the wheelbase in the car and the handling characteristics on these street circuits that sometimes are very rough. We saw it at Cleveland. We've seen it here at Toronto. But what I'm wondering, in that kind of an impact, do you think the fact that that nose is extended out there contributed to the ease in which it seemingly was sheared off?
That's an interesting question, especially considering that other cars, Reynard in particular, who has had the extension for years, approaches it a different way. Parker?
Well, they do. The Reynard, the only way you can tell if they're running the extended wheelbase is by looking at the inclination between the upper A-arm and the body itself, and it's just canted about 25, 30 degrees forward. As we've seen on the Lola the last few weekends, they have that special step, which they tested very early in the season during spring training. Now, Gary, I think if you look at the mounting point of the Lola, it's a much smaller area. Certainly, it's a longer lever arm when it's sticking out that much farther, which would make it a little easier to come off in the impact. Generally, though, they're easily replaced. I think the problem was it actually did structural damage, and a lot of the pieces remain attached to the front bulkhead of the Lola. I was surprised overall, though, that they are running this longer wheelbase. Usually you do that to add in stability, but it takes away from the transitional quickness of the car. And at a track where all you're concerned about is getting over the bumps, putting the power down, and making very quick right, left, right combinations, I think most of the teams this weekend are favoring the shorter wheelbase versions of not only the Lola, but also the Reynard chassis.
Top 3 is coming very, very close. I want to take you on board, Max Pappas. He's back in 9th, but we're just going to ride with him. You get an idea how bumpy this place could be.
Interesting riding along with Max Pappas during the course of the weekend. I've been watching the onboard of Montoya quite a bit. The Fords are shifting 4 to 6 times more a lap than the Toyotas are. You say, well, that's not very much. But over the course of over 100 laps, you look, that's 400, 500, 600 times more shifts. The gearboxes have been prone to failure, especially later in these races. We've seen it at Detroit, at Cleveland, where the tracks are quite bumpy, and that can make all the difference.
Shinji Nakano came into Derek Walker's pits. They're in there for a lengthy pit stop. So his race, for the most part, has done. At the front of the field, though, Michael's right there, and he wants Cristiano. Cristiano has been maintaining just over half a second lead, and Michael's been on top of it. Adrian, of course, there is Adrian Fernandez, the Ducati car. He's sitting right there as well. So at any moment, just the slightest hesitation, and the entire front three will change very quickly. 59 complete of the 112. The Molson Indy FedEx Championship Series. We'll be back right after this. That's 900 plus horsepower on a Champ car, but you're talking thousands of horsepower on a top fueler. Don't forget the coverage tonight of the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals from out in Colorado. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, go.com. Cristiano Damata is still the leader. Michael Andretti moved up, and for a moment he challenged Adam, but then he had to drop back. The Honda Helicam looks down on the circuit. There you see the interval from Cristiano Damata with Michael Andretti right there. And staying right in touch is Adrian Fernandez. Paul Tracy is 3 seconds back from the leader with Kenny Brack right behind him.
And consistently now, the fastest car on the racetrack has been Adrian Fernandez. I'm starting to wonder, as we're monitoring broadcasts between the drivers and the teams, they're asking about pit stops. Remember, we saw this strategy 2 years in a row with Gilles de Ferran at Portland. I think some of these guys are starting to crank up the wick and saying, all right, look, we're not going to make it in 2 stops. If it stays green, it'll be a splash and go towards the end. Let's just crank up the power and go for it.
Jan Vikas, Andretti sits in second place. What game do you think he's playing?
Well, one game he played for a few laps there, Paul, was that someone's radio here amongst the crew got stuck open. And so therefore he was hearing all the PA, the public address system, loud in his helmet for a lap or two. And actually, it looks like he's in the middle of a battle right now. So it looks like they got that cleared up.
Oh, major battle right now as Michael Andretti continues to work on Damata, and both of them are in a pretty desperate drive, going to lock several times during the last lap.
And I'll tell you, they went from 9/10 of a second to just over a half a second interval between Damata and Andretti that last lap. But we saw Damata get wide. Andretti tried to take advantage of it, but he nearly followed the mistake. But look how much he's closed up in just these few quarters.
Yeah, and don't forget that you've got Adrian Fernandez right behind him. We want to show you Cristiano. Now, take a look at this. Watch his hands.
He comes in, he locks up the rear brakes, slides the car. And in fact, they've been complaining of braking problems, or most of the teams have the entire weekend. It's been a focus of trying to get these cars set up just to stop. We just heard a radio communication where they're telling Cristiano, dial in front bias if you need.
We need 192 on mileage.
That's 1.92 miles per gallon. They're talking to Michael Andretti, trying to make it a 2-stop race at 1.9. That means they can go about 38 laps between pit stops.
In third place, Adrian Fernandez has Tracy up and working on. And Gary, what's the story with Fernandez?
Well, we were just checking with their crew, and Parker was saying Adrian is on the fly. He'd been told earlier on, do his best to catch the field. Then they would work on the fuel mileage. They're targeting lap number 76. If they can make it to 76, it's a 2-stop race. They think that's what they're on target for right now. Fernandez loving the way this car is working, and he is flying. Meanwhile, Cal Wells has told Cristiano Damata on the back straightaway, if you need to, use that overtake button if it's necessary to try to hold off the charge of Michael Andretti.
Of course, the comparison of powers there, Toyota.
You're doing better than you need to on fuel now, better than you need, so use it if you need to.
That's Adrian Fernandez radio. Comparison of power at the front of the field, the Toyota of Damata and the Ford power of Michael Andretti. The comms you were hearing, of course, with Adrian Fernandez.
And Paul, Adrian reporting the car's getting loose again, so that may be a concern in these, 10 laps or so until he gets to that designated second and hopefully final pit stop for his team.
Yeah, about 10 and a half would be the guess on number of laps that he would have to go.
That's one of the concerns for the teams, is conserving those rear tires. We talked about it right at the beginning. But for Cristiano Damata at the front, he's just got to settle down, really focus. And this has got to be one of the hardest things in the world, not worry about the black car with the silver helmet that lies directly behind him.
And despite sitting in that third place hammock that Adrian Fernandez currently occupies. He has turned off with the 3 fastest laps thus far of the day. He really has that car moving.
You know, it's interesting, though, as we watch them coming down that long straightaway, Andretti's working D'Amata very, very hard, trying to get him to force a mistake.
And the top 3 are all right together. It's Toyota, 2 Fords, a Honda, and then another Ford. The engine battle is alive and well. We'll be back with more right after this. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Molson Indy is brought to you by FedEx, proud sponsor of the FedEx Championship Series. And by Miller Lite. For the coolest stuff in the world, go to MillerGetTheGoods.com. 67 laps complete. Cristiano D'Amata flashes across the line again. And he has Michael Andretti working him as hard as I've ever seen it done. Poor Cristiano. I mean, he's really got the old veteran back there. And as they head now for turn 3, one of the key passing areas here, let's see what Michael's intentions are.
Now watch Michael. What you see in your rearview mirrors is a small slot inside the rear tires. Michael moves from the right side to the left side, takes the optimum line, trying to beat him up the hill here. Watch to see if he makes a move down the inside of 5. He can't get it done, but what he is doing is making sure that even though there's limited visibility to the rear of these cars, that whenever Cristiano looks in his mirror, all he sees is black and silver, or if nothing else, he's seeing the color change out of his peripheral vision.
Still probably about 6 laps left in this fuel stint. Cristiano D'Amata, though, has been skating that car everywhere. He's in a desperate drive to keep the lead of this race, and while he is doing that, Fernandez, Tracy, Kenny Brack, for that matter, Tagliani are all beginning to close down on the lead.
Well, coming onto the pit straight out of that last corner we just saw the previous lap, Cristiano came onto the straight, full opposite lock with Michael all over the back of him. Oh, there you saw it again, coming out of turn 2.
Gary Gerald, you've been watching the leader of the race. I've been waiting to do this all year. Watch D'Amata.
I knew you were going to slide that in at some point. Well, D'Amata right now for Cristiano is the fact that that car is not handling the way he really wants it to. They're telling him on the radio, just dig in, try to make it to this designated stop. They're targeting lap number 74. That may be a couple of laps ahead of the target number for Adrian Fernandez, but we've got ourselves quite a fight going because it looks to me like as they flash by here, the top 4 or 5 have all closed in.
And you can see the rear tires going off on Cristiano's car now. Almost every corner exit, he's sideways. He's driving to the middle of the road on the corner entry, being as defensive as possible, trying not to let Michael down the inside of him.
9 seconds, 1st through 11th on a road course.
There it is, right there. The most critical corner on the track, the exit right here, coming off at 2. To maximize your top speed, 190 miles an hour down here. Watch Cristiano stay to driver's right. Watch Michael start to the right, swing back out to the left. And then if he makes a move, he'll come back to the inside.
Whoa, 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 Michael almost had the problem there.
You can see Cristiano locking up the rears on the way in, but he still got to the apex cleanly. Remember, Cristiano, with years of karting experience, is used to having 100% rear brake bias, is used to sliding the car on the rear brake into the corners. It's a little different, though, with over 900 horsepower in a 1,550-pound car where you've got a lot of mass, a lot of momentum. And if you get the underbody of these cars more than about 20 degrees or so, you lose a significant amount of downforce, and all of a sudden it just all goes away in a heartbeat.
You know what I can't help but wondering about, though, is looking back there, 5th place, Kenny Brack, there he is. My notes have him stopping just a little bit early, and he hasn't had the benefit of a full course caution. My guess is he ought to be in very quickly.
And the target number, as Gary said, they've got to get to lap 75 or 76 in order to make it 36 laps to the end under green. We're hearing radio communications now for these guys to be careful. Tracy, Brack.
Look behind Kenny Brack. Tagliani and Vassar have both gotten around to Farron. Of course, the focus is at the front of the field. Pretty hard to get away from that.
And what these teams are telling him is that D'Amata and Andretti are engaged in a strong battle here, and they don't want their drivers to get caught up on it with only a few more laps until the final round of pit stops.
Upper left-hand corner, when the leaders have laps pitted. D'Amata still trying to hold off a charging Michael.
And Paul D'Amata will see a sign just flashed to him, P2, pit in 2 laps.
And keep in mind, up until the beginning of this race, Toyota has only led 71 laps on road course or on street courses, and now D'Amata, in his first time at the front, has led 72 laps today for Toyota.
L2.
Perfect bit of driving. He just drives right down the middle. Says, Mike, if you want it, you've got to take it on the outside. And remember, this is where we saw the brilliant pass of Zanardi around Andretti going down that exact same corner, one of the best passes, along with the pass at the top of the corkscrew at Laguna that I've ever seen.
D'Amata with tires that have to be, for all practical purposes, totally gone. Michael, would he have been able to save tires a little bit being in pursuit?
It's always easier to follow than it is to lead. And I would say definitely, because we can see Cristiano's car, every single exit, the back of this car is all over the racetrack.
Looking down as they head into the turn at the Princess Gate, turn 1, now through turn 2. Around the automotive building at Exhibition Place, on to Lakeshore. The crews have already begun to lay out for both Cristiano D'Amata and for Kenny Brack. They are prepared for a stop. That's the PPI crew for Cristiano D'Amata. Tagliani is really working on Brack now. Michael back and forth, still looking for racing room against D'Amata.
Once again, Cristiano just has to concentrate on doing everything as perfectly as possible. He knows he's coming in this lap, but he doesn't want to give Michael an opportunity to get underneath him. He wants to maximize the lap time. Look how sideways he is on power. Now watch, he'll make the left-hander, then swing directly into the pits, and he's in.
On that last lap, it got tighter and tighter because 6 seconds covered the first 11. Gary Gerald?
We await along with the crew, and it's up to them now to do the job routinely. We think Andretti's going to pit on the lap after this. Fernandez still 3 or 4 laps away from his stop. But let's see what happens now as Cal Wells' PPI team springs into action. Everything looking routine. Tires change, waiting for the final bit of fuel to get in. Comes down off the jack, still fueling. Now he rolls just over 13 seconds yet.
Whoa, and you may have heard that. That was Kenny Brack and Max Pappas leaving. 13.2 for Kenny Brack. He's back out there.
So Bobby Ray Hall and Dave Letterman's team have stopped their 2 cars. Dave Letterman, by the way, is here first time in a while. It's good to see him back in the pit area. Bobby Ray Hall, he's just doing nothing but working in that interim president of CART. But he's got a lot of people talking about how good things are. So Michael Andretti picks up the lead. Adrian Fernandez moves to second. Paul Tracy to third.
Watch your speed in the pit lane, Mike.
And this is the most...
and hit your box.
This is the most important lap for Cristiano D'Amata, is he's got to run this lap hard.
Jan?
Michael Andretti is in for his service now. We see the Farron go by. Tires done, just waiting for the fuel.
Watch Jimmy. Go.
12.6.
Gil DeFerrin also into the pits. Now we wait for Fernandez. There is DeFerrin. That's a neat view, isn't it?
And that could be the race right there. Cristiano D'Amata was unable between the pit stop and that outlap on cold tires to get in front of Michael Andretti. That could be the determining factor in the outcome of this race. And if he's going to do anything, he's got to do it now while Mike's on cold tires. And I don't think it's going to happen.
On the pit road for Tracy and for Vassar. Jan Beekes.
They've been telling him on the radio, no mistakes. The first important part of this stop was done. He brought it and stopped it on the marks. No one in front, no one behind.
Think about the exit. No mistakes on the exit.
I'll tell you what, standing behind the car when he does that on the rev limiter is very cool.
Just come by. Michael's just come by.
Nothing like 16 grand. And look at that, he got out in front of Michael and D'Amata. What great pit work by Team Green. Cristiano's got to get him if he's going to do it at the end of the straightaway here. Remember, he's got a couple laps on the tires. Paul doesn't. He gets it done.
Cristiano comes in front of Paul Tracy, continuing his now pursuit of Michael Andretti. Tracy comes right up under the rear wing of Cristiano D'Amata. Oriol Servia works on Tracy.
Fuel when you can. +2 on fuel when you can.
Now here's something else to consider. Adrian Fernandez, the leader of the race, his crew is laid out, and we would expect that Roberto Moreno would be into the pit shortly as well, though as yet his crew has not laid out. Now remember, this is a team that has carried the fuel further than everyone else throughout the season, so let's not forget Fernandez and Moreno. Right now, though, the advance over Michael's position is only about 4 seconds, so Michael's going to have theoretically going to take the lead unless something else happens here.
And look at the advantage Andretti's got. He went a lap longer than D'Amata. D'Amata 2 laps behind Tracy. Tracy, of all the top 3 now, has the advantage to be able to run the most power for the longest period of time until this driver, Adrian Fernandez, and his teammate, Roberto Moreno, come in, and they're in.
You know, the scoring computer, though, just changed the interval. 31 seconds. Back to Andretti.
No way. You watch Michael. He's got a head of steam on Adrian unless Adrian pulls the mother of all blocking maneuvers coming down into turn 3. And he's doing it.
Michael Andretti doing everything he can to get around Fernandez. He moves to the outside, sweeps across the nose. Michael Andretti back to the front.
And that was a huge move because Michael took an enormous risk cutting back in front of Fernandez on cold tires, under braking for the 3rd corner. But it was brilliant and perfectly timed.
Now, Roberto Moreno picks up the lead on the 78th lap. He'll be coming in on this lap. In fact, he's on the pit road now. And the interval, Moreno to Andretti, 28 seconds, Gary.
Yes, indeed. He's right here. He is in the last of the pit boxes, 42.5 feet long. Lots of room for these crews to work here at Exhibition Place. Moreno ready. Oh, they disengaged. A little problem. Now a hesitation, and he gets going. He may have lost about a second and a half on a clean out.
And a costly second and a half because Michael Andretti screened past, and so did the rest of the front runners. Moreno will probably drop in about 6th place once he gets up to speed.
Look at Paul Tracy now working the back of Cristiano D'Amata.
70. Oh, D'Amata loses it, catches it.
Same problem he's had since about the halfway point in the race. He's got a lot of rear brake bias in the car.
So Michael Andretti and then Fernandez, Cristiano D'Amata, Paul Tracy, Alex Tagliani, and Kenny Brack. They're lined up in a battle royal here in Canada. Don't forget, just 1 week from today, it will be coverage of the Michigan 500 on ABC Sports. We'll have our usual warm-up on ESPN2. And remember that the guy right underneath that display, Max Pappas, ran out of fuel on the very last lap, giving the win over to Tony Kanaan, who will hopefully be making his reappearance in the series back. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, Go.com. Well, the final stops all complete. We don't expect him back in the pits again. It's all up to the drivers now. Michael Andretti's just completed his 81st lap. He's being chased by Fernandez, Tracy D'Amata, Roberto Moreno, who you see there, Alex Tagliani, then Kenny Brack, Gilles de Ferran, Patrick Carpentier, and Max Pappas, who you just rode with. He rounds out the top 10.
And I tell you, the guy who's been the most impressive has been Paul Tracy. Qualified 12th, was patient in the beginning, put some fuel in the bank. He's gone farther than anyone else except for Fernandez and Moreno. His crew gave him a couple of great stops. And between Michael Andretti and D'Amata, he's got the most fuel in the bank other than Adrian Fernandez, who should be able to run full power now all the way to the end.
I don't want to forget Jimmy Vasser, too, because he is the last one on the lead lap, but he's only 12 seconds behind the leader, Michael Andretti. Paul Tracy sits 3rd. Jan Bikas.
Yes, and you were talking, Parker, about the fuel in the bank for Paul Tracy. That's what they're reminding him on the radio every lap. Use the button if you need to. You have plenty of fuel. Go for it. Here you go. And that is the advantage you get, as you mentioned, when you come into the pits a bit later than the other guys.
Roberto Moreno, the winner 2 weeks ago, was 11th before the stops. He now runs in 5th place. Tracy through 3, up through 4. Behind Fernandez, Michael Andretti the leader. Vassar now working Pappas. Complete. Previous years, we would have been in the last 10 laps of the race here. Not so today. They're going to run to 112.
And we're seeing an awful lot of cars lock up, particularly the rear brakes, coming into these low-speed corners. Everybody having problems with brakes all weekend long. It's so bumpy here. It's very difficult to get the braking maximized.
40 to go.
And it's a crucial element to get the most speed out of this track. You have long straightaways.
2 liter, 60.8 Andretti.
Leading into very slow corners with a lot of low-speed transitional corners.
Still riding with Pappas, but moved up to the nose. Parker, you keep talking about brake bias, which is the relationship of the energy used on the front brakes to the rear brakes. Mostly you want them really on the front brakes, but is it adjustable?
Well, certainly they have driver adjustable or cockpit adjustable brake bias. The whole idea is to have the fronts lock just an instant before the rear so that all 4 brakes are doing the maximum amount of work. Most of the drivers prefer neutral to front brake bias. Like some drivers will go a little bit to the rear if they're having problems getting the car to rotate into the corners. But this weekend, I've heard drivers taking out 8 turns, 10 turns, 12 turns of bias and having no effect on the outcome of the handling of the car, which is just a huge amount.
The big Kmart car of Michael Andretti is the leader of the race. On the last round of stops, well, Jimmy Vassar was the big loser. He was 7th as they went into the pits and came out in 11th place. Michael Andretti now has the lead, but the front 11 are still very, very close together. That last round of stops, it was more than a little interesting and had a major impact on the outcome of this race. 85 laps complete, no changes since we left you, but Roberto Moreno now really wants to work hard on Cristiano D'Amata. He's out alongside him going into turn 3, stays there as they head up the hill and maneuver through turn 4. Then he tucks back in.
Yeah, we mentioned the braking problems.
Oh, get out of my way. Yeah, right.
We mentioned the brake problems that Cristiano had. Talked about the brake proportioning valve that's cockpit adjustable. Usually the reason that they have that is that as these cars burn fuel, it takes a lot more weight off the rear of the car than the front of the car. So typically during the course of the race, it's a very busy environment. You're adjusting boost, adjusting fuel mixtures, and one of the things you're doing is gradually moving the brake bias to the front. In Cristiano D'Amata's case, he's probably got as much dial to the front as he can, but at some point, it becomes a losing proposition. You start overheating the front brakes, and all of a sudden the rears start working more effectively than the fronts because of so much bias differential, and all of a sudden you're locking the rears all over again.
Michael Andretti all alone now, 3 1/4 seconds ahead of second place. Adrian Fernandez will show you the laps led by the different chassis. This race started out as a big hesitation for city officials here in Toronto. You know, loud cars going down their public streets. It has now become the primary festival of the summer. Everybody loves it. The Canadians love to come out for this race. And not just a few Americans coming up over the border. 42,000 on Friday, 52,000 on Saturday, and 72,000 in the stands right now watching the run here. .4 seconds ahead of Adrian Fernandez. There's Michael. Look up track. Adrian's got some work to do.
Michael driving a very measured race. He's been in this position so many times before. A completely different situation for Cristiano D'Amata. Remember, his best finish came 2 weeks ago at Cleveland when he finished 3rd. And you can see Roberto Moreno, his first win coming 2 weeks ago at Cleveland, pressuring Cristiano very, very hard. And when you're in Roberto's position and you can see the driver in front of you having problems with his car, it just makes you that much hungrier, makes you push that much harder to take advantage of a situation that's not ideal for the driver in front of you.
Now, for some reason, Global TV has an interest in the 25 car. because Luis Garcia ran off course. But there's the story. Michael Andretti, 5 wins on this course. You ask him, how come you do so well here? He has no idea. I just do well here. Second in 98. His wins came in 89, 91, 92, 94, 95, so it's been a while. Michael Andretti, Adrian Fernandez, Paul Tracy, 88 laps complete. 112 the scheduled distance. Ford, Honda, Toyota, and Ford, the top 5. Well, next weekend, not only is the FedEx Series at Michigan Speedway, but also the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series with the 200. They will race at Michigan Speedway. Coverage coming up next Saturday. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Part of Go Network, go.com. No changes since we've left you. Michael Andretti is still the leader of the race, and now having to work into traffic just a little bit. Then Fernandez, then Tracy, then D'Amato, Moreno, Tagliani.
And there goes Tag.
There goes Tag as he gets Moreno.
What an amazing drive for Alex Tagliani today. Started 19th, now up to 5th position. He has been hustling every single lap, and look at him take off once he got around Moreno, and now here comes DeFerrin.
Yeah, Moreno's got a problem. Moreno's in trouble.
Had a report of a flapping sound. Could be a tire going away, Paul.
So suddenly, Roberto Moreno with a problem slows down wisely, gets out of the way. His car owner, Pat Patrick, saying, what's going on here? But remember, Patrick still has a guy in second place in the person of Adrian Fernandez. Looking at the tires, I can't tell much.
No, we don't see anything there.
Bring it in, Roberto. It's got some smoke coming out of the back of it, they're saying, so it's probably throwing oil out.
And he's had a difficult weekend. He started 16th, but keep in mind, he's our championship leader. He was solidly in the points, running then at 8th position before this problem, looking to extend his points lead.
Jim McGee, one of the great chief mechanics when they ran the teams, now one of the great managers in the series. Gary Gerald?
And as you heard Jim McGee on the radio, we were asking Ed Nathman if it was a tire. He said didn't think so. Thinks it's transmission related or something in the drivetrain. He says it's breaking down.
So Ed Nathman tells him to come in. Michael Andretti, there is the interval. Back to Adrian Fernandez. The other car from the Patrick stable. Here comes Paul Tracy. Started 12th. Tracy wears that helmet as a tribute to Greg Moore. Well, I'll still miss him. We all still feel that, don't we? Especially you come up here, a Canadian race. I'm sure when we get to Vancouver, we'll feel it even more poignantly. 91. Now complete. Andretti, Fernandez, Tracy, Cristiano D'Amato, the early and dominating leader, in 4th place. The real question was, Kenny Brack. He was up in this fight and has now dropped back to 11th place, but he did that because while all that other fighting was going on, he ended up in a quick through the escape road off-course excursion, got back on, but it cost him 4 places. Cost him more than that, cost him 6. All the stops are complete. Totally up to the driver. Kenny Brack, he has to do what he can to catch up. Clouds still over the track, but occasional sunshine, and no indication that we're going to have weather that's going to affect us. Still, though, there are the possibility of showers. We'll be back with more. FedEx has a fleet of planes that transports the kart cars internationally. Dario Franchitti had the opportunity to sit in the cockpit at Cleveland. And during a visit to the FedEx headquarters in Memphis, he got to pilot a FedEx Airbus simulator.
All right, right there, perfect. Start raising the nose up, gently. Come up, up a little more, stop right there.
Now we're getting clever, we're turning and going up at the same time.
Dario, is this at all like a champ car?
It's a lot smoother. None of the bumps of Detroit. Try a landing jump. Oh, there's a turbulence. Here comes lunch.
Bring it right on in. to the left rudder to keep it on the center line. Beautiful. You've got your first landing gear, bus. That was sweet. Very nicely done.
Dario, you wuss. Here comes lunch in a big airplane like that. Wait till Parker and I get you in one of those Hornet simulators. We'll show you. Michael Andretti leads it. 3.9 seconds over Fernandez. 95 laps complete, 112. The scheduled distance. Michael unchallenged at the moment. The intervals, though, in the top 10 still pretty tight. Cristiano Damata sits back in 4th place. There you can see first to second. Now, not as tight as we thought. Here comes Tracy. And then Cristiano Damata is almost 13 seconds back, Gary.
Yeah, they're telling Adrian Fernandez that on some laps he is a bit quicker than Michael to keep up the pressure, that he could force Michael into a mistake, or perhaps Michael could get loose. He also has been reminded that Michael pitted 3 laps prior to Adrian, so his tires could go away a little bit sooner. So they're hoping that any of those things could happen, and they want Adrian to really, you know, dig in there and give it his best shot. And I'm sure that's exactly what Adrian's trying to do.
Adrian, one of the winners this season at Rio. And led since Motegi, though, back up, looking at the front of the field. 3.9 still behind Michael. That's a gap that could close. We'll keep a track of that interval.
Adrian's first win came here in 1996. It gave him the confidence to then go on and win races on super speedways, road courses. He's pretty much done it all now. He's got the same power plant, Ford Cosworth. And by having that advantage, that extra fuel, the only difference between these two packages is the chassis. Adrian should be given the impetus to get up and try to catch this man, Michael Andretti, but I haven't seen Michael make a mistake all day long.
Parker, you and Gary have been on our off-air channel quite a bit talking about tire pressures.
Well, Gary, you mentioned during the break that you had heard that there had been some tire pressure changes to Adrian Fernandez's car trying to improve the handling.
Yeah, we understand that they may have gone down as much as 2 pounds on the first stop and then down another ½ pound on the second stop. Jim McGee telling Adrian he didn't think it would be too risky to try that. We had a conversation yesterday, Parker, during our qualifying show about the dramatic extremes that we had seen relating to tire pressures at the rear, sometimes as much as 8 pounds difference. And I thought at that time that was kind of off the scale. I can't remember hearing numbers quite like that. And I guess you were pretty much in agreement.
Well, I think Toronto's confounded a number of these teams. When you talk about an 8-pound difference, the rear tires on a street course normally run between 18 to 22 pounds. Every pound of tire pressure is a 75-pound change in the vertical spring rate. So 8 pounds would be like changing the rear spring 600 pounds. I thought that was the biggest change I'd ever heard, but going up and down the pit lane, I found one team that had made almost a 3,000-pound front spring change during the course of practice. And this is what amazed them and amazed me. It made no difference to the way the car handled. So a lot of these teams, if they came off the trailer fast, they stayed fast. If they came off slow, they came off slow. They really have no idea what the magic setup here, other than if it's working, don't change it.
I guess we talk about subtle changes. Nothing subtle about that.
Not at all.
To try to catch the interval, and as a matter of fact, in the last lap, Adrian Fernandez knocked 2/10 off of that interval with Michael Andretti. Ford, Honda, Toyota, Ford, Honda. We'll be back. Welcome back to Exhibition Place, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Paul Page, Parker Johnstone, Gary Gerald, Jan Bikas, covered of the CART FedEx Championship Series in the Molson Indy. Andretti still the leader. No changes since we left here. I'll take you on board. An interesting comparison, I think, that you wanted to do for some time, Parker. That maybe now, as the interval still spread out, we can do it.
Well, we recorded this earlier. It's a side-by-side comparison of Juan Montoya and Mark Glendale. We talk about hands. We talk about the difference in shift patterns and cars. Watch the difference in the amount of steering angle put in between Juan Montoya and Mark Glendale. You'll be able to watch their hand angles, or their hand positions, how they correct coming off the corners. You'll see going down the straightaway, they shift in almost identical places, which means the gear ratios are almost the same, but watch the difference coming down on the back section of the track now. They both downshift to second. Watch the steering angle there of Mark Glendale versus Montoya. Montoya significantly a lot less steering. Notice Montoya doesn't shift through this whole section, and Glendale does. Notice the quick catch on Montoya coming out of the corner. His car neutral to loose. Mark Glendale with a lot more understeer. We're making some assumptions here that they both have the same steering racks, 10-to-1 ratios, very quick, which is what all the teams use on these street courses. But once again, look at the difference, and it's huge. It's 20, 30, 40, 50 plus degrees in steering angle.
And that's our third Toyota Spotlight. No change in the interval. Andretti to Fernandez. Max Pappas with Jimmy Vasser behind him and clear course ahead. Way up the way is Patrick Carpentier. Pappas is currently 8th. Interesting to both. And Roberto Moreno slows and pulls off.
Looks like it's turn 5 on the inside of the curb there. One of the few places where the drivers have line of sight. Don't think so.
There was a big shift, like it happened in Chicago. This shift was banging backwards and forwards, and it went from there. Okay, doke.
Okie doke, that's the conclusion of a fairly expensive weekend. And it's going to be costly for Moreno, though he will leave here with the points lead because he came in here with a 22 points lead. There's no way that anybody else in the field can eclipse that.
And significantly, that 22-point lead was ahead of our leader, Michael Andretti, who, if he continues, will pick up 20 points, just make the championship that much tighter.
Next week, of course, they head off to the Michigan 500 in the high banks of Michigan Speedway.
And that's where the diversity of these teams and drivers really comes in. They come from the narrow confines of Toronto to the 230-plus mile-an-hour wide-open 2-mile oval at Michigan.
And don't forget the Hanford device, aerodynamic device that they added to the cars for the Michigan 500 has made for some incredibly close racing and constant lead changing. And if you can match the drama of Tony Kanaan's last lap victory 1 year ago when Max Pappas ran out of fuel, I'd like to know what it was, because it was a great race, and we're hoping for much of the same 1 week from today.
And you mentioned Tony Kanaan. Just to update on his recovery, he drove 200 laps in a go-kart yesterday, took a break in between to watch qualifying, then went right back at it. They're going to have a final evaluation of Tony's recovery next Thursday prior to Michigan, and if all goes well, he'll be back in the Monon racing car.
Pappas and Vasser. That's Garcia behind Vasser, but he is 2 laps off of the pace, so he's still trying to work Vasser.
It was one of the other stories of interest this weekend with Alex Zanardi back in the paddock and pit lane on Friday, having discussions with numerous teams for next year.
Everybody wants him.
Everybody does. It was
not everybody has the checkbook to want him. So at 103 laps, here are the points as they sit right at this moment. So Andretti will pull to within 2 of Moreno. DeFerrin tucks in there pretty close as well. It's still a very tight battle. Andretti, Fernandez, Tracy, DeMata, Tagliani is 5th. Then DeFerrin, Carpentier, Pappas, Vasser, and Kenny Brack rounds out the top 10. There they are, your top 503 complete.
What did he picture in his mind at 5 years old? At 8. At 11. He pictured himself looking just like this. At 500.
Back in Toronto, no changes since we left you. Adrian Fernandez is 2nd behind Michael Andretti. And the interval is widening between Andretti and Fernandez. But again, there is the question of, is Michael going to run out of tires before the end of the race? Meaning that, is he going to lose some of the traction while Fernandez, who's about 2 laps behind him in terms of the last stop, might be able to be have a little more adhesion in the last couple of laps.
Well, watching Michael...
The fuel's all yours, Paul. All yours.
Just a few laps ago, Michael Andretti turned the fastest lap of the race. I haven't seen his car move under braking mid-corner exit. I think he's got the car well under him. doesn't look like he's leaning on the rear tires at all. My first answer to that would be, I think Michael's good to go to the end. Obviously, his car's working very well. He's very confident. He's been in this position many times before, but keep in mind, he said his last win at Toronto came in 1995. His last street course win came back in Vancouver, British Columbia in 1996, which also happens to be Lola's last win on a street course.
L7.
You heard Barry Green give Paul Tracy the go-ahead, that he had plenty of fuel to, without any question, make it to the end, so he could go ahead and power it up and run it as hard as he cares to. Interval was 8.8 as they crossed the line between Andretti and Tracy last time. Garcia Jr. hasn't been a factor for some time, 2 laps behind the race.
One of the advantages that the Newman-Haas cars have at a circuit like Toronto, they run this unique crossover damper system so that when the car rolls and displaces fluid, that fluid's pumped back to the inside wheel. So instead of unweighting the inside tire as the driver turns for Michael or for Christian, it actually pushes the wheel back down onto the asphalt. We mentioned about how difficult a place it is to set up for here at Toronto. Normally you want to keep the bottom of these cars as low and as flat as possible to the race surface so that they produce maximum. 6 laps to go, Michael's being told, so that they produce maximum downforce. But the problem is it's so bumpy here, the cars have to ride over the bumps for effective braking and to be able to put the power down. If you have a soft car, it doesn't transition well, doesn't turn in quickly. It's a very difficult compromise to find, but this car in particular has something that no other car in the paddock has, with the exception of his teammate, Christian Fitipaldi.
Michael Andretti is so good when he's in this position, just rolls those laps off with no problem. As Michael's laps led include the last lap, 442 this year. 14 races, 442 at Toronto overall. 14 races he's raced here. He's won 5 of them, pretty close to winning his 6th. Just 6 to go now. Fernandez is 4.3 seconds back. Tracy is 9 seconds back. But let us not forget, Toronto is rough, tough on cars, and who knows what can happen in the ensuing 5 laps of the run here. Andretti, Fernandez, Tracy, Ford, Honda at the Molson Indy. No changes since we left you. The intervals remain the same. There is Fernandez, 4.27 seconds back. Paul Tracy, 9.03 back from the leader, Michael Andretti. 107 complete. Closing 5 laps of the run now. And there's your leader, Michael. 6 times he'll have won here if he can only stay in that position. An unprecedented 5 victories here coming into the race. Makes it look so smooth.
Yeah, it's hard to tell that he's going as fast as he is. He's still turning laps of 103 plus miles an hour, 61.2 seconds on that last lap, considering that they've got corners down to 40 miles an hour. It's very impressive.
His Newman-Haas teammate Christian Fitipaldi out in the early going when he rear-ended Dill DeFerrin as DeFerrin jumped on the brakes to make it into his pit. And needless to say, Christian wasn't very happy about that. He being scored with the 17th position out of the race.
Michael's now pulled out 5.1 seconds on Fernandez. Of the guys on the lead lap in the top 9, Alex Tagliani is consistently turning the quickest laps of that group, but he is some 6 seconds behind Cristiano D'Amata and will not have time or laps left in order to catch that position for 4th place.
With 4 laps to go, Michael has commanding control over this event. But again, there's always that nuance of the fact that the gearbox, the suspension, the engine have all been beat up pretty badly during this run.
L3, Mike. L3.
And they take a pounding around this course. We've seen in the past at Toronto in the closing laps, it's typical of Cleveland and Detroit, where suddenly we've seen lead cars pull off with mechanical failures.
We certainly saw that at Cleveland, where just all of a sudden a gearbox goes, an engine goes. Paul Tracy said he had the biggest engine explosion he's ever had there during the qualifying. And then apparently that had an effect upon his gearbox because the gearbox went the next day.
Michael Andretti now 5.5 seconds ahead of this team. Adrian Fernandez with Pat Patrick Racing. Tremendous effort by this crew. Adrian Fernandez qualifying in 9th position, up to 2nd.
They were waving back there. They use the international standard here that if they put a yellow up at one corner station, once the course is clear ahead, they also put a green out to let the drivers know when they can begin to accelerate fully once again.
Keeping in mind that under most yellows, these drivers don't slow down at all. It just tells you you're clear of the incident and there's nothing ahead in the next corner, so you're not looking for a following yellow or a full course yellow.
All the other guys told me that they do slow down. You were the only one that didn't.
Well, there you go.
Kim Green, team manager for Paul Tracy, he looks on. The rest of the crew, they're huddled over the computer watching the telemetry data coming in, as well as the computer data telling you the interval. For Fernandez, it looks like a pretty desperate move. Michael Andretti, 96. Last time he had multiple wins in the season, 5 then. Fernandez, 5.3 seconds back. Michael may have this thing locked up. In fact, he can almost coast. He's closing down on Oriol Servia. Servia is 11th, but Servia, remember his problems, is 3 laps behind the lead of the race.
White flag, Mike. White flag.
Probably didn't need to tell him that part. I'm pretty sure he saw that one. 1 to go for Michael Andretti.
And he won't push to get Servia unless Oriol just pulls out of the way. He's got a big margin now, 5.8 seconds on that last lap. He doesn't want it. Well, as you can see, Oriol did the right thing, being a couple laps down, lifted completely out of it to let the leader go through. Michael now thinking, I've only got a handful of corners. The car's running well. Normally you start to hear things and feel things you haven't felt before, going, come on, baby, just get me to the checkered flag. But he's got it well in hand now. Paul Tracy, a great run for Paul.
Paul Tracy was 2nd in 1998. Michael Andretti was 2nd. Tracy 2nd last year behind the then winner, Franchitti. Michael Andretti, it's just a cruise now. 5.8 seconds still the interval to Adrian Fernandez as they came around on the last lap. Fernandez also a former winner here. Michael is looking right in the face of career win number 40. That's a pretty major mark for Michael Andretti, his 40th career win. Here comes Tracy, 3rd place, across the line. And Dan Mario accepts the congratulations and, in fact, congratulates the team that helped put his son, Michael Andretti, out in front for his 6th win here in Toronto and his 9th win in Canada, as Adrian Fernandez pulls up to congratulate the new winner here, Michael Andretti. There they are, 1, 2, 3. It's Paul Tracy. He wants to come up and congratulate. For Cristiano Damata, he led the most laps. That's the tip of the CN Tower, about a mile away, sticking through the clouds. Andretti wins it, followed by Fernandez, Tracy, Cristiano Damata, and Alex Tagliani down through the entire length of the field, way down to the end of the front straightaway where they stopped for the winners' interviews, and Gary Gerald's made the run.
And the wife and son Marco, everybody here in the family, Michael celebrating the king undisputed with a knockout victory here today. How tough was it in the middle stages when you were chasing Cristiano Damata, and were you concerned that you might not be able to get by him?
Well, first I want to thank the whole Kmart Texas Avalanche team. They did a first-class job. They're the ones that want me to race. They did all the passing for me. I was just trying to be patient when I was behind Damata. When I saw him go into pits, then I knew it was going to be up to my crew, and the guys did it. They got me out ahead of them, and then the rest was history because our car was just so perfect today. The Ford engine was perfect.
Any concerns at all?
No, there wasn't. Once I got in the lead, I just felt like, all right, just keep my rhythm and we'll be okay.
Is there a special feeling of accomplishment knowing that this is the 40th of your career?
Yeah, and I'm really happy to do it here in Toronto because I love Toronto. It's a great racetrack, great fans here, and couldn't think of a better place to do it.
And as far as the championship is concerned, I guess you couldn't find a better way to start the second half of the season because with Moreno's problems, you've now pulled within 2 of him.
We're looking for him, you know. It's not just him. There's a lot of other guys we've got to worry about, but if we can continue just to do our job and finish the races, we should be good.
Another magnificent piece of glassware, not hardware. Oh, look at this beautiful trophy that he'll add to the collection. Career win number 40, number 6 in Toronto. Great job, huh, Paul?
Yeah, and you know, nearly a fourth of those victories, 9 of them, have come on Canadian soil. Well, there's the points as we predicted. Roberto Moreno will still leave here with a points lead, but that was a very important win for Michael Andretti. Pulls him within 2. Let's go to Jan Vikas.
And of course, a great run today for Adrian Fernandez as well. Adrian, briefly you had the lead, at least when you left pit road, but on cold tires, it's got to be hard to hold Michael back.
It's very hard, and I was struggling with the brakes a little bit at the middle to the end of the race, and I tell you, I needed to finish the race. I didn't want to do something stupid, and it sounds silly, but you know, I didn't want to throw everything away. We made some great passes at the beginning of the race when I passed Gilles and things like that, and I just needed to finish. First half of the season hasn't been good for us. I didn't want to make any mistakes, and the guys did a tremendous job on the pits, and I'm so happy for them because it's been a struggle year for us. Even though we've been competitive, but one or the other has been hard. But I tell you, the Patrick team with Moreno, myself, is very strong, so I'm very happy.
You talked about the brakes and having a problem. We talked about the drivers throughout the race adjusting in the cockpit. How much of that did you have to do?
Some of that. The pedal was getting very low. You know how he does. It changes the balance, so start locking a little bit the rear, and I have to be very careful at the end of the braking, and that was it. Really, the only problem. After that, the car was really stable. I mean, John Ward and Ed Knappman did a tremendous job on setting up the car, and the whole crew. They gave me a great car to make my life easier here.
Adrian Fernandez getting back on track.
Woo! With Paul Tracy now, Jan. And Paul, what does it feel like after this drought of championship points you've been through over the last 4 races to come here on the podium?
Well, I think what makes me happy most is, you know, being able to wear Greg's helmet in the race. That gave me a lot of motivation. Seeing Rick this weekend made a lot of drivers feel good. And I just want to thank him and his family for allowing me to do that. And to get a podium is fantastic in Toronto with how our weekend went. I couldn't be happier for the whole crew at Team Cool Green.
Revitalized championship hopes now?
I hope so. I mean, we got the monkey off our back now finally after 4 races, and to score a podium from 12th at a tough street track like this is pretty awesome.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
The reference to Rick, of course, is to Rick Moore, Greg Moore's father. There are the unofficial results once again. The L for D'Amato's leading the most laps. And Michael Andretti, though, has scored his 2nd win of the season, and he did it at the Molson Indy in Toronto. We'll be back with more in a moment. The Molson Indy in Toronto has been run, and it has been won by Michael Andretti, his 6th time. Let's go to Jan Vikas.
Well, a guy who thought he was going to have a good shot at winning today was Cristiano D'Amato. And I know it didn't turn out the way you wanted, but your impressions on getting to lead as long as you did?
Well, it was fun for me because there's been a long time I haven't had a race since Indy Lights in Vancouver '98, so that was almost 2 years. I'm happy with the performance, the team getting better every weekend after weekend, and being able to be consistent at the front. Of course, not very happy with the result, but that's the way it goes. Today didn't work out our way. If we keep on putting the car on the top 5, on the top 3, as we've been able to do the last couple of events, I think the door must open for us sometime.
I have a feeling that door is going to open pretty soon, guys.
D'Amato finishes in 4th place. From 19th up to 5th was Alex Tagliani. A great run for Tagliani. Of course, in 1 week to the Michigan Speedway. We'll have the qualifying coverage in Kart Today on ESPN2, and then the race itself on ABC Sports at 1:30, 10:30 Pacific. A great Michigan 500. So, Parker Johnstone, interesting run, a lot of action mid-course.
Excellent run, and we saw a lot of patience at the beginning of this race, some brilliant driving, flawless performance by Andretti, Fernandez, Tracy, baptism by fire. Cristiano D'Amato leading his first Champ Car race, and as you said, tremendous drive from 19th place up to 5th for Alex Tagliani.
As in our Toyota Spotlight, we take a look back at this day, which was very interesting here in Toronto. We congratulate Michael Andretti for his 40th career win. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of the Go Network, go.com. For Parker Johnstone, I'm Paul Page. Gary Gerald, Jan Vikas covered from the pits. Next week, we'll see you at the Michigan 500.